Welcome to the night sky for February 2026. In this presentation, we'll be looking at the moon phases. We'll have a look at the eclipse happening on the 3rd of March. Then we'll have a look at Earthshine, what it is and what you can expect to see. Then we'll take a tour of the planets, which planets are best positioned for observing in February, and then finish up with the night sky Stellarium Tour. Let's get started. First of all, our moon phases. So we're in last quarter on the 9th of February. The moon will be rising at around 20 to midnight. On the 17th of February, we have a new moon, which will be rising and setting with the sun. 24th of February, we're back to first quarter, rising at about 2:30 in the afternoon, and then full moon again on the 3rd of March. We have an eclipse on that day. Our lunar eclipse is on the 3rd of March. As mentioned, it starts at around 11 p.m. You can see on the animation there, the eclipse reaches totality around midnight, and then the show finishes around 2:15 a.m. So hopefully we get a clear night and you can see the lunar eclipse completely. Now let's talk about Earthshine. So staying with the moon, Earthshine happens when the moon is between the Earth and the sun, so just after a new moon. If you were standing on the moon and you looked up at the Earth would appear to have phases, full, half, etc., just like when we see the moon. Now the Earthshine happens when the moon is illuminated by light that's come from the sun, bounced off the Earth, hit the moon, lighting up the dark parts of the moon a little bit, and then we see that illumination on the moon as a faint kind of ghostly glow. So the best time to look for this is just after a new moon, just after sunset, when the moon is low on the western horizon. And this month that will be around the 20th or so. So take a look at the moon in the western sky chasing the sun down to the horizon at that time of the month, and you may be lucky and see some Earthshine. Now let's talk about the planets. So Jupiter is rising in the early evening, and it's rising about 7:30 at the moment, and that'll come back to about 5:30 p.m. at the end of the month. It's bright and high in the northeastern sky in the evening. It's making a bright cluster of similarly coloured objects with Aldebaran, Betelgeuse, Procyon, Sirius, and Rigel. We'll take a closer look at that when we do the Stellarium Tour. Saturn is also visible. It's low in the northwestern sky in the evening. It's setting at around 10:30, so not much later than when the sky gets fully dark. And that comes back to 8:30 at the end of the month, so not ideal observation conditions for Saturn. Mars, Venus, and Mercury are very close to the Sun, and in fact you won't really get to see them. There is a planetary alignment with all of the planets at the end of the month, but unfortunately, owing to our length of daylight hours, we're not going to see too much of that because it'll all be washed out by the sun. Anyway, let's take a look at the night sky in Stellarium. Let's start on the 10th of February at around about 10 p.m. and we're looking north. And we can see that, as I mentioned in the section about the planets, we've got Jupiter here with Sirius, Rigel, Betelgeuse, Aldebaran, and Procyon all making a kind of a cluster or a halo of bright stars around it. So that's something definitely to look for with Jupiter in its current position. Now, we've got Orion prominently visible there. You can see the 3 stars of Orion's belt. And of course, Orion is upside down as far as we see it, according to typical kind of star mythology, with us being in the southern hemisphere, of course. And so his sword is pointing up rather than pointing down. On the sword of Orion, there is the Great Orion Nebula, which you can see here as we zoom into it. Now, the Great Orion Nebula is fantastic because it's something that you can see in binoculars under a dark sky. So let's have a look. That looks like the field of view that you would have if you looked at it through the 10 by 50 astronomical binoculars. Now that would be visible under a dark sky. It's bright enough that you'll see it in binoculars. So that's a deep sky object that you can look for and see in binoculars. It's not the only one, because while we're on the subject of deep sky objects visible in binoculars, let's swing around to the southern part of the sky, because up here in the southeast we have the Eta Carina Nebula, one of the brightest deep sky objects in the night sky. So let's have a look at what that one will look like in binoculars. So that gives us the size of how it would appear in binoculars, so it's quite large. And it's bright enough that your binoculars will be able to resolve it. You won't see any of the color in it, but what you would see is the shape, the wispy kind of shape. You'll be able to make out the divisions between the sections of it. That's not the only deep sky object that's visible in binoculars, because if we come over to the other side of the South Celestial Pole, and we find here the Large Magellanic Cloud, then part of the Large Magellanic Cloud is this structure here, which is the Tarantula Nebula. Now again, let's have a look at that in binoculars. So that's approximately the size that you'll see it in the binoculars. And the Tarantula Nebula is bright enough that you can see it with binoculars. And in fact, if it was in our own galaxy, it would, even if it was far away, it would throw significant shadows at night, and it would be brighter than the full moon. It throws off an enormous amount of light. We've also got the small Magellanic Cloud, which sits down here as well, which looks like another pale kind of ghostly cloud in the sky there. Let's swing back around to the north and back around to the area of Orion. Okay, so beneath Orion, down here, we've got Matariki still putting in an appearance, low on the northwestern sky in the evening. If we look at it in our binoculars, then that's the view that we see in binoculars. You might not get to see all of the kind of nebulosity, reflection nebulas around the stars, but you would be able to see the recognizable shape of the star cluster. So that's a good target for your binoculars as well. Okay, moving on. If we look up high, we've got Sirius, brightest star in the night sky. And Sirius forms part of the constellation of Canis Major, which is up quite close to the zenith, up quite close to directly overhead. You can see just on the southern side of the zenith there we have Canopus, which is the second brightest star in the night sky. So both of those stars are quite close together and quite close to overhead. Underneath Orion we have Taurus, and if we turn off these constellations, you can see this very familiar kind of bracket-shaped asterism, which identifies Taurus right away. It's the forehead of Taurus, the bull there. And if we spin round to the south, the most recognizable constellation for the southern hemisphere is sitting here, the Southern Cross crux. You can see there with the two pointer stars pointing towards it. So they're on the southeastern side of the celestial pole there at the moment, and you can start to see some of the shape of the Milky Way kind of running through it as well. You know, the Milky Way is stretching overhead and going through to the north. However, the best time to see the Milky Way is if we jump the time forwards to about 5 a.m. Let's just pull that back a little bit so that it's still dark enough. And you can see in the eastern sky, we're looking towards the center of the Milky Way here, and we've got the magnificent arch of the Milky Way basically running east to west at that point. Now, when you're looking into the center of the Milky Way there, you're looking into the center of the galaxy directly towards the Sagittarius A star black hole that all of our galaxy orbits around. And in fact, if we turn on the stars and constellations and things, you can see that we're looking directly at the constellation Sagittarius there. That constellation is more or less directly overhead for us in the middle of winter, but now that it's summertime, it's very low on the morning horizon. Let's finish off now with another one of the images from our Cretny Observatory, and this is the M83 Galaxy, and this has been taken in both RGB, so broadband, natural color, with some hydrogen alpha in there as well to bring out the nebulosity and the glowing gas clouds that are very prevalent in that galaxy. And if you look closely, you can see in the areas close around the galaxy, these indistinct shapes are actually other galaxies as well. Each one of these galaxies is one the same kind of size, shape, and structure as our own Milky Way. And that's all for this month's night sky. Happy observing, clear skies. See you again next month. Thanks for watching.